So Luther is, at the time of making this video, currently spending its 8th week on top of the Billboard Hot 100 chart, easily becoming both Kendrick and SZA's longest running #1 to date. It's no surprise, really, Luther is easily the most radio-friendly song from GNX, with SZA and Kendrick's unquestionable chemistry shining through on a particularly tender song. Both are gearing up for their Grand National Tour, and of course I secured tickets, so there was no better time to drop this video than right now. In contrast to the Not Like Us music video or the Super Bowl halftime show, there isn't the absurdly detailed approach where every frame seems to have a particular reference or significance. Luther's video is stripped back, intimate, and perhaps what some would call vibey, but that doesn't detract from its artistic vision and aim. It attempts to speak to and communicate ideas that are maybe more intangible than some other songs from GNX. What I believe it does do is add to the scope of the track, but not in a way that is immediately obvious or over the top. And as with everything in Kendrick's discography, it is preoccupied with the idea of duality. The video opens with stark black and white as Kendrick and his love interest stare unflinchingly into each other's eyes, with this vintage VHS style title that briefly pops up. As with the old school Luther Vandross sample and the visual aesthetic, everything seems to point to a previous moment in time, a moment that has been lost or can't be reclaimed. I think the idea has some legs as soon as we transition into the color section of the video, where Kendrick sits with this cold, detached look on his face in silence before casually breaking out into the song itself. This demeanor has been apparent in previous videos from the last year as well. When I made my GNX analysis video a few months ago, I pointed to the song's diametrically opposed notions of love and violence. The idea that Kendrick is willing to love and protect so hard that he will commit atrocities, and I think that is what is taking its toll on him here. We cut back to black and white and a shot of this large, desolate hotel lobby where Kendrick and his love interest seem like ants from our perspective. It points to the idea of isolation and loneliness. If this world were his, they would be the only two inhabitants, it appears. Remember, Kendrick says if this world was his, he'd take her enemies in front of God and let them feel his wrath effectively. On the surface, this is a romantic song, of course, but it also points to the cost of love and where that conflict takes your relationship. And when you think of it in these terms, alongside the visual representation of this, you can't help but think back to other songs where these ideas are explored. I personally think of some songs from Mr. Morale like Die Hard or We Cry Together. Not because they are anything alike stylistically, but because they use almost entirely different genres of music to communicate ideas that are intrinsically connected. The vulnerability, conflict, and sacrifice of what it means to love. We then cut to this 1970 TVA looking room where these wooden doors slide open to reveal Kendrick's GNX draped in this red tarp. I do believe this is also the same location that the original GNX teaser was filmed at too. But importantly, there is this sharp cut in between shots. At first, everything is in warm hues as Kendrick sits beside his love interest. There's an openness and familiarity to the space. Importantly, however, they don't seem particularly close or affectionate. As soon as Kendrick displays the extreme lengths he'll go to protect his love, in this case, violence symbolized by him firing that gun, that safe space has been transformed. It is now dark, cold, cavernous, and importantly, his love interest is nowhere to be seen. That is the catch-22 that Kendrick seems to view his version of love as. His love is so important that his head must constantly be on a swivel and he's always in protector mode. The irony is that approach creates conflict in his own relationship and can drive that person away. When you're hyper-focused on perceived outside threats to your relationship or love, you can lose track of the person that's standing right in front of you. It then cuts to SZA making her way down this brightly lit corridor to meet her love interest. Their initial demeanor and interaction with each other indicates, to me at least, that this is initially a purely physical relationship. I need to also point out that almost every building or structure in the video is circular, similarly to one of the stages that Kendrick and SZA performed together on at the Super Bowl. In fact, it was the final stage they performed on where all of their dancers finally came together in unison. That's what I think the ever-presence of all these circles represents. The goal of unity and harmony, but the content of the video displays some of the struggles getting to that place. The video itself is interspersed with moments of silence and extra sections from the original Luther Vandross sample. Now this might be one of my biggest reaches ever, but please hear me out for just a minute. Kendrick's dress shoes here are focused on for a brief and seemingly random moment. My hypothesis is that this is a direct and lighthearted reference to Luther Vandross himself. I'm sure you've probably seen this meme at some point.
Man got on them. I can't feel myself. I don't want nobody else to.
Of course, the song in question is Luther Vandross's Never Too Much. Again, we have no idea how little or how much Kendrick is tapped in online, but I think it's just really funny to imagine him being aware of this meme. Anyway, Kendrick and his love interest, back in black and white, continue to stare lovingly into each other's eyes as this elevator ascends. To me, signaling that those brighter or better days are in reach. Also worth noting is that in the very moment after Kendrick says introduce them to that light, we see the elevator leave the darkness and literally enter the light. After that moment is the first time in the video where we see a smile on Kendrick's face. Kendrick sits down as his partner dances for him, but we only see her shadow. For me, this is another signifier of that looming detachment between the two. He, at this moment, is too worried or paranoid to simply take a moment and watch her dance. The video constantly shifting between black and white and color in all of these different scenarios points to a non-linear narrative, or maybe no narrative at all, but rather expressionist vignettes that are greater than the sum of their parts, not too dissimilar from a video like Element, for example. SZA sings In This World, Concrete Flowers Grow, and we jump to her dancing on a set of giant concrete brutalist circular structures. She's in this room with this love interest as she says weekends get it popping on the low, to me indicating some sort of forbidden romance. It's taboo or transactional for some reason, and love blossoming from this place seems unlikely but not impossible. SZA joins Kendrick in what looks like a depressingly empty council waiting room, and they simultaneously contemplate the nature of their respective loves. As a side note, some of the color sections in this video also give me strong Severance vibes. I'm only one episode in, but still. The music cuts as the sample itself becomes diegetic music. In contrast to the previous shot, the elevator Kendrick and his love interest were laughing together in is now descending, and in that descent they have become distant. Kendrick is on his own as this woman looks at him just to be acknowledged, it seems, and he can't bring himself to look her in the eyes. His outfit is different, he's dressed in this beanie and hoodie as he retreats back into himself. He bows his head almost in disappointment before briefly mustering up the courage to look at her. Kendrick pulls up to SZA in his GNX, not even as potential lovers, but merely two people who share separate struggles and difficulties in their respective romantic lives. Kendrick does, at this point, one of his trademark laid-back dances as he holds his gun, accepting that reality that his confrontational nature might lead him to lose his love. If that is so, then he might as well embrace that character, which is kind of the ethos of GNX as an album. What is sad is that this violence was originally what he would do for her, and in that moment when he is alone, its meaning has been rendered non-existent. SZA explores the constantly shifting nature of her relationship with these two opposing shots. Initially, her and this man are completely separate as she performs directly to the camera before they embrace in a very intimate dance. It seems to feed into her line of heartache she's only doing what she knows, in that this version of her only knows love through this performative lens. That's part of why I feel that not only is this song incredibly bittersweet, but the video actively adds to that reading. In one of the other color shots, we see Kendrick and his partner laying on his lap as she rubs her belly. Those better days that are coming for sure may be in fact the promise of a potential child on the way. Even the fast food joint that they go to has this circular, brutalist aesthetic. The way she's casually watching Kendrick practice his performance might be a comment on how the pursuit of art can put a strain on relationships, which again was thoroughly explored on Mr. Morale. We then see the elevator continue to descend, this time with Kendrick alongside his love interest. It feels like in this moment, Kendrick is convincing her that even though they are at the lowest of lows, metaphorically and literally, he attempts to convince her of his dedication to the relationship. He physically moves her head so they are at eye level with each other so he can tell her that he trusts her. What's interesting is that in other shots, as Kendrick is expressing his dedication to the cause, addressing her directly, he still struggles with communicating that. In the fast food place, as he's rapping, his back is turned completely to her. And that for me is where the uncertainty lies and why Kendrick and SZA have to convince their respective partners to trust them. The song itself soon ends, but the video does not. The original sample once again becomes diegetic music. Kendrick and his partner don't speak a word, but they let Luther Vandross's voice communicate for them, almost like a meta commentary on the original track. And just the vibe and aesthetic of this moment feels incredibly romantic and intimate. All it is these two people in a very ordinary fast food place as they gently hold hands and listen to some music. I myself can remember seemingly mundane moments with my fiance sitting in some shitty Burger King somewhere as we just hold hands and say nothing. It's that feeling that can't really be described, that is so accurately portrayed. And sometimes that feeling or moment takes place after a challenging moment or an argument or whatever it might be. And the moment you hold hands, it's like, why were we even angry in the first place? Luther itself is a song that attempts to communicate things that are sometimes hard to do. And the original sample seems to be doing that job as well. SZA and her partner share a dance very different to all of her other dances with him. It appears overtly loving rather than solely lustful. Again, pointing to the idea that their love can blossom even if it originally came from a situation that might be seen as taboo. The video for Luther is a prime example of effective and simple visual storytelling. It doesn't batter you over the head with heavy-handed messaging or meaning, and some of the things I've pointed out may not have even necessarily been intended by Kendrick or SZA. And as a side note, I should point out the amazing work of the director, Karina Evans, who has directed for SZA before and notably has directed 4 videos for Drake back in his Scorpion era. She most definitely deserves her flowers for the Luther video. But yeah, the visuals for Luther are the perfect accompaniment to the song itself. It's tender, bittersweet, romantic, and ever so subtly sad. It does exactly what a music video is meant to do. It expands rather than contracts the vision of the song it's attached to.